Okay, so let me first briefly introduce our speaker for today. Professor Kai-Ping Chen, for those of you who have not yet met her, is an assistant professor in computational communication in the Department of Life Sciences Communication. She's also affiliated with the UW-Madison's Hort Center for Science and Technology Studies and Center for East Asian Studies. Before joining the faculty at UW-Madison, Professor Kai-Ping Chen received her master's degree of public administration from Columbia University and a PhD in communication from Stanford University. Professor Chen conducts research on how digital media and technologies affect political accountability to public well-being and how deliberative designs can improve public discourse on controversial and emerging issues. She has worked with luminaries in our field, such as Jennifer Penn and James Fishkin. She has published her research on a number of high-profile journals, including American Political Science Review, International Public Management Journal, Politics, Frontiers in Sustainable Cities, Russell Sage Foundation Journal of Social Sciences. Also present today is her co-author of the paper, Yiping Jin. He finished his master's degree in economics at UW-Madison, is now a research assistant on projects related to science and misinformation and public management with science in China. He applies computational and econometric methods to examine large-scale social media data. Also present here is Laurie Dennis, the person responsible for making things happen at Center for East Asia Studies. And without further ado, I'm turning the mic to Professor Kai-Ping Chen.
Yeah, thank you, Professor Han, for inviting me to the curriculum. And it's my great pleasure to meet this fantastic group. So let me share my screen now. Okay, great. So I'm very excited to present my paper with my student Yipeng, who is in the audience. So in this paper, we studied how issue entrepreneurs shape public discourse on controversial science. And we take a deep dive into the GMO discussion on a Chinese Q&A social media platform. And both Yipeng and I, we are very much look forward to hearing your comments and suggestions, and feel free to interrupt me during the presentation. So issue entrepreneurs have been shaping the course of history, from civil rights movement leaders such as Martin Luther King to youth activist Greta Thunberg on global warming. So King's speech, I Have a Dream, and Greta's address at the UN Climate Action Summit became strong voices for driving far-reaching discussion among the public, from the offline protest to online mobilization. Among these important social problems, such as civil rights or global warming, which have drawn public attention for decades, there are a variety types of issue entrepreneurs involved that often diverge on their perspective and communication strategies. For instance, the recent pandemic is an exemplar showing messages delivered by politicians often differ from scientists. So while scientists present the uncertainty and the often changing scientific evidence to the public, political entrepreneurs feed the public with certainty and emotion. So as the author of When Celebrity Culture and Science Clash stresses, many issue entrepreneurs on science nowadays are actually people outside science, such as celebrities that make science-based claims and provide advice, often with little evidence to back up. Yet, they draw tons of public attention and even influence people's health decisions. So one of the unintended consequences of these different types of issue entrepreneurs with different kind of credibility join the science conversation is the large opinion gap we observe between the public and scientists. So this is a 2014 Pew report that surveyed, US adults as well as scientists about GM food and a variety of other issues. So what they first found is there is a large gap between opinions about science, between opinions from scientists versus adults. For instance, over half of the US adults still believe that GM is generally unsafe, and only 11% among scientists. So not only we see a large gap between public and scientists on their understanding of science topics, majority of the US adults believe that scientists do not have a clear understanding about the health effects of GM crops and other issues. So understanding how various types of issue entrepreneurs influence public understanding on science is crucial to address the gap between scientists and the public. So this challenge motivated us to write this paper. So in this paper, we asked two research questions. So first, how do issue entrepreneurs influence public discourse on controversial science over time? And second, how do public deliberate about controversial science? So before I take a deep dive into our paper, I would love to give you an overview of how we addressed these two questions. So for the theory part, our paper is inspired by the public arena model, which is a classic model that studies the role of issue entrepreneurs in issue evolution. So drawing from this classic model, we discussed the nature of social media as a digital embodiment of the public arena for controversial science, and introduced the scope conditions of our paper, which we focused on Zhihu, which is one of the biggest Q&A platform in China and on the GMO topic, because they offer us a very rich time series discursive traces to study public discourse. So we will then introduce our data set, which we used our computational tools to retrieve all of the GMO related posts and answers from 2011 to 2019 posted on Zhihu to build our rich time series dataset for study public discourse. So we identify the issue evolution and collected the discourse from major issue entrepreneurs that initiated these issue evolutions. So we will then introduce how we leverage computational text analysis methods to study the effect of issue entrepreneur strategies on public discussion, and how we couple computational analysis with menu content analysis in order to understand the nuance of how the public deliberate about the GMO topic with the influence of the issue entrepreneurs. So here is our major finding. So over the past 8 years, you see on this timeline, we found that issue entrepreneurs indeed influence what the public discussed and how the public discussed about GMO. So we want to highlight 3 major findings we have in our paper. So the first is issue entrepreneurs' debate on GMO draws public attention to discuss more about the science communication and the conflict between the communities that the entrepreneurs represented, rather than the science of GMO. So we see that public began to focus more on talking about science communication rather than science of GMO with the influence of the debate. So the second is we find that supporters of various issue entrepreneurs, they are not only divided on the attitudes about GMO, but also divided on the rhetoric skills they use to talk about GMO. So furthermore, we also found that issue entrepreneurs' strategy matter for public discussion. So we found that when the issue entrepreneur we studied in our paper shifted his strategy from communication to a commercialized activity, this strategy shift backfired on public trust and a discussion about the entrepreneur. So first, let me introduce the theory our paper drew from. So the public arena model is a classic model that examines the role of issue entrepreneurs in issue revolution. So arena is where social problem definitions evolve, examine the effects to those arenas on both the evolution of social problems and the actors who make claims about them. So there are two important features of the public arena. So first, in the arena, different issues need to compete with each other because public attention is a very scarce resource. So the second thing is what they also called operatives are those entrepreneurs, the groups or the individuals who publicly present social problems. So they need to compete with each other or compete with public attention on the issue by using innovative communication strategies. So these strategies include the use of drama and a slogan to arouse public attention and action. And issue entrepreneurs, for instance, in the GMO movement, like in this picture, the Greenpeace organization, they use the very vivid image to frame genetically modified food as made by the monsters from the science lab. So besides drama, vivid framing, another strategy used by issue entrepreneurs, which we see a lot, particularly from the celebrities, are storytelling, which move people to tears and then distract people from scientific evidence. So underlying this strategy is the key message of challenging the authority and changing the status quo. So the public arena model, since it was raised, has been applied to political context as well as science contexts. So in the political context, as Anthony Dunn summarized, an issue experienced different life cycle. So it can experience the pre-problem stage to the alarmed discovery and enthusiasm stage, to realizing the cost of significant progress, and then to the gradual decline of intense public interest, and ends with the post-problem stage. So what Dunn's addressed is not all issues go through this cycle, because many times an issue is raised where a minority group in the society is suffering, and many problems are hard to keep the public very excited. So only a very limited amount of issues actually have a long life cycle where they develop, thrive, or sometimes sustain in public attention over a number of years. And at this kind of thing, this is where the issue entrepreneurs is crucial in determining the life cycle of an issue. So strategic politicians, they're gonna use communication strategies such as a very clear party image to polarize mass affection toward them and shape the issue alignment between the mass public and the elites. Or those strategic politicians, they will sometimes highlight a previously ignored issue that is always very different from the mainstream status quo. So applying to the science context, scholars also identified a diverse types of issue entrepreneurs in science topics such as environment and health issues. For instance, those entrepreneurs include media, both the mainstream media and those specialized newspaper and magazines, NGOs, and especially with the development of internet, netizens who posted internet incidents. This is when a post or image suddenly goes viral overnight. So even ordinary citizens, they also can become an issue entrepreneurship in the social media age. So one thing, Yang reminded us about the hidden hand behind the issue revolution is the political conditions of a country, which matter for whether an issue can sustain or fade away. So maybe political structures are more open to some issues than others. So in the science context, framing is also a strategy often used by the issue entrepreneurs in science. For instance, some scholars found that internet users are more likely to repost opinion leaders about GMOs that use the factual frames. So social media is a new public arena where issue entrepreneurs can guide the evolution of the public discourse from politics to social justice and to science debate. So one unique feature which makes social media different from the classic public arena model in the offline context is its democratization structure. So social media create multiple channels of information. They vary in different credibility and degrees of foundations for users. So as a result of this kind of democratization, we see a variety of issue entrepreneurs emerging on social media. They vary from politicians to the counter publics in the society, or to citizen opinion leaders, scientists, or like we say, ordinary citizens who post incidental videos and images. So they use a variety of very innovative strategies, such as a lot of them use like entertainment or bring or combine entertainment, with the ideology. So this democratization structure brings opportunities and challenges to science-based issues. So regarding the promise part, this widened participation allows policymakers to learn a variety of expertise, especially from the lay public perspective. However, it also poses challenge to the epistemic authority of scientific community and science, as we see more and more alternative influencers or venues join this platform to claim what is knowledge. So social media has also become a new public arena for controversial science issues in China. So these issues including air pollution, genetically modified food, and the very recent CRISPR babies. So different issue entrepreneurs, including journalists, science communicators, scientists, and the lay public, they engage in debates and a discussion in this social media arena. So what we observe from there is majority of these issues like air pollution or CRISPR, they have very short life cycle due to political censorship. With the exception of one issue, which is GMO, which has been brought to public attention several times over the past 10 years. And these controversial issues are similar in structure, as they are all what the scientists call wicked problems, where facts are uncertain, values in dispute, stakes very high, and decisions urgent. So take the GMO issue, for example. The risk level associated with GMO are difficult to be certain about and even harder to communicate because it involves various aspects of life, including people's fears about the health risks, people's values about the relationship between human beings and the nature, people's concerns about the business and the state interest behind the GMO, and the right to know about the scientific truths of GMO. So this kind of issue are all multi-risks. It highly involved people's different trade-off between different ideology, culture, and value systems. So with social media becoming a public arena for science information, scholars have recently started to use social media platform as an important research site for examining science communication. So in China, among different social media platforms for discussing and spreading controversial science, Zhihu is one of such platforms with a unique reporting and a discussion structure. So Zhihu is a site where you can see a lot of the discursive events occur. And it is one of the most popular Q&A platforms in China and allow users to contribute knowledge by asking and posting questions commenting and voting to each other's answer. So as we can see, this is like one screenshot of the web page of our Zhihu, and this is where you can see people ask a question, such as, is GMO food safe? What is the pros and cons? And then we can see there are around thousands of people follow this question. And then we can also see like people can post answers to this question. Like there are around 600 people post questions. And then for people who post the questions and the answers, they can also receive comments. For instance, this is one answer given to the question, which is from the user called Antigang, with nickname as a physics master student from a third-tier university in China. And then this person replied to the question of, is GMO good or not? And we can see this person received like 20 vote up. Votes means up. And he or she also received 11 number of comments. So in this paper, we focus our research site on Zhihu, not only because it is one of the most popular Q&A platform, but also as you can see, Zhihu provides researchers a very rich time series data set on the discursive traces. So these discursive traces allow us to study how issues evolved and how different entrepreneurs shape the public discourse. So for instance, GMO is one of the issues that have been discussed on Zhihu for a very long period of time, over 8 years. And we also focus our paper on the GMO issue because it shared characteristics as other controversial science issues, which is wicked in nature. However, GMO is also distinctive because it was constantly discussed over the past 8 years, while majority of other science issues, they have a very short life cycle due to political censorship. So on this issue, GMO, several debates occurred between a TV host who is an anti-GMO activist, a science communicator, and some reputable science professors from universities. So these 8 years of digital trace data on Zhihu provide us an excellent opportunity to investigate the relationship between issue entrepreneurs and public discourse in the digital space. So to engage with the series from this literature, our paper has several specific research goals. So first, we examine how social media is a public arena for issue entrepreneurs to shape public discourse, which is a classic question that has been studied extensively in the offline communication setting, but is less understood in the digital space. So second, while most research have examined the issue entrepreneurs' influence in a relatively short time cycle, either in an experiment setting or as a result of one event, little is known about how public opinions might evolve when issue entrepreneurs use different strategies and change their strategies over time. So this is where we need a long enough time span to understand issue revolution, and also a longer time span to test some of the classic theory in communication, such as, for instance, framing theory, which has been shown to influence public understanding of science. So in this paper, we address this gap by taking a very rare opportunity from the rich data set of the GMO case on Zhihu, thanks to its time series events over the past 8 years. And we particularly took a deep look into several iconic events where the issue entrepreneurs, they use different strategies, such as emotion versus scientific reasoning, and issue entrepreneurs changed their strategies over time, for instance, from focusing on communication strategy, including the use of rhetoric to challenge science authority, to commercial strategies, such as opening their own organic online food stores. And moreover, what we focused on this paper is about public discourse, which investigates how the public deliberate about controversial science under the influence of issue entrepreneurs. And many studies have looked into public opinion on science, but few have investigated how the public really reason and engage about science issues. And we look into, for instance, how people use logical reasoning, storytelling, or even sarcasm when they talk about the GMO. So here are our research questions. So we ask, how do issue entrepreneurs influence public discourse on GMOs over time? And how do public deliberate about GMOs? So let me introduce our data and method section. So we use the Zhihu Web Crawler API, which is an application programming interface for developers as well as researchers to retrieve all of the Zhihu data on a much larger scale and in an automatic manner. So we collected all GMO related topics, and including their questions, people's answers, and votes from the time period from January 2011 to 2019. After we collected data, we plot the volume of people's answers, questions, and votes per day across these 8 years to identify how public discourse on GMO evolved. So this is a graph which we can look at, this is like the public votes and the number of answers and the volume of number of questions posted over the past 5 years. And from this graph, you can see there are several spikes in public attention. So these are the times where the volume of people's questions, answers, and votes reach peak simultaneously. So we observed 3 major spikes in public discourse. So we took a deep read, at what the people posted and to see what these spikes are actually about. So we see that these spikes actually correspond to public discussion on 3 major events launched by the issue entrepreneurs on GMO. So the first is a debate between a TV host and a scientist at a public university in China, which we call the Cui Lu debate. And the second event is when a TV host opened his online organic food store to sell expensive organic food. And the third one is less related to GMO, but more related to the TV host when he revealed the tax invasion from many celebrities in China. So although the issue is unrelated to GMO, but the people started to discuss more about this TV host who is an anti-GMO person after this event. So looking into these events, looking into who these issue entrepreneurs are and the strategies they used, we identify several important entrepreneurs in the GMO discourse. So the first one is a very, very famous TV host and investigative journalist in China who is very famous for his talks and documentaries that challenge the scientific authority, review the corruption between the government and biotechnology companies. So the communication style from this person, he is very passionate, also very critical, in his communication. He loves to ask questions with aggressive rhetoric to challenge the authority. So the other 2 issue entrepreneurs are a scientist and a science communicator. So both of them promote the use of scientific evidence and they defend the science of GMO. They use a lot of citing evidence. They talk a lot about scientific reasoning. They differ a little bit in their communication style. So one loves to use kind of also aggressive language styles, while the other, who is a science professor in China, he tried to avoid using aggressive rhetoric and always try to be calm and use scientific reasoning in his talks. So in this paper, we particularly look into 2 spikes in the issue revolution. So the first is we look into the Cui Lu debate, and we look into the organic food store opened by this TV host to see how they influence the public discourse. So the Cui Lu debate is a debate between this famous TV host, Cui, and a scientist, Lu, that happened in March 2015 at Fudan University Department of Communication. So this is an event where Cui was giving a talk about GMO, and during the talk, Professor Lu entered the auditorium, asked a question, and then Cui started to debate fiercely with Lu. So during the debate, Cui attacked the authority of the science community on their claims about the safety of GMO. So the communication style he used, he always used eloquent argumentation. he didn't focus on talking about the science of GMO. So rather, he focused on questioning Professor Lu regarding who can best represent the interests of the public. So differently, Professor Lu reacted with scientific evidence and logical reasoning, tried to educate the audience about the science of GM food. So this is a typical quote from the TV host Cui during debate, which shows he used very strong arguments to challenge the science communities. He said, "Let me tell you, our journalism community strongly feels that your science stuff is just not reliable. There is not even a scientific community, right? Which Nobel Prize gives to scientific community? Prizes are often given to different individuals." So this is another quote from Professor Lu. And Professor Lu tried to emphasize a lot about the science behind GM food and cited the scientific evidence. So this is what he said in the debate. He said the golden rice provides a lot of needs proved by science. For children, for instance, they have night blindness, live in poverty, and in developing country, golden rice is very important food. This scientific project is the hard work from generations of scientists and achieved support also from society and NGO. So we see that during the debate, the two entrepreneurs, they used very different communication styles. So this is the first event, we look into. And the second peak is when the celebrity, the TV host, Cui, shifted his strategy in criticizing GMO from debate, argumentation, to a more commercialized behavior. So he opened his online store, selling organic food in 2017. So the food there is really expensive, like this organic chicken costs almost over $40. So immediately after he opened the store, another science communicator attacked him, criticizing that rather than spending such a huge amount of money buying organic food, spend more money, you guys, learning about science. So to answer our first research question, how do issue entrepreneurs influence public discourse on GMOs over time? We used a state-of-the-art computational text analysis method, structured topic model, to compare what the public discussed 1 month before the debate and 1 month following the debate. And we also study whether this effect holds longer by looking at what the public discussed 2 months after the debate and 3 months after the debate. So we also use this structured topic model to compare what the public discussed after the Cui-Lu debate versus after Cui opened the online organic food store in order to see how this shift in strategy from this entrepreneur changed the public discourse. And by doing this, we look into what the public talk about on Zhihu within 1 month after the debate, within 1 month after Cui's opening of the online organic store. So just a quick review of the structured topic model. So the reason we choose structured topic model over other kind of topic modeling methods is because it allows us to explore the relationship between metadata and the text data. For instance, in the structured model, it allows researchers to compare, what's the discuss, how the Republican, how the conservative people versus people who have more liberal ideology differ on what they discuss. So in this case, liberal versus conservative is the metadata. You can think about it as your independent variable, and the dependent variable is people's discussion. It also allows us to look at how people's discussion about a topic change over time. And some of the other things it also allows us to do is, for instance, this changing in our case, our metadata is about what the public discussed before the debate versus after the debate. So in our case, the key independent variable is before and after the time point. So what the structured topic model gives you, the researchers, are what topics are prevalent with a lot of the keywords. And what the researcher to do to interpret those topics is to first, you can look at the keywords which are associated with each topic. But also, we need to look into the example under each topic. So then, this is a method where the researcher need to combine your domain knowledge about the research topic you are studying at with the help of the computers in order to interpret what each topic are about. So to answer our second research question, how the public deliberate about GMO, we performed the content analysis on public deliberation after the Cui-Lu debate. So we looked particularly, we manual coded 3 variables. So the first variable is about which entrepreneur the users support. So we first collected the minutes of the Cui-Lu debate. And then when we look at each Zhihu answer, we look at whether this answer align with the opinion from the TV host or the scientist or neither or both. So this is the first variable, support whose discourse. And the second variable we coded is the answer, the poster's opinion about whether he or she support GMO or oppose GMO or is neutral. And the third thing we code about each answer is the rhetoric used in the answer. For instance, we coded whether an answer uses reasoning or uses storytelling, use logical arguments or sarcasm. So here are some examples of the different rhetoric. For instance, an answer which doesn't use reasoning is like, for instance, this answer, the person just expressed his opinion without talking about any evidence. So this is the answer uses storytelling. So for answer uses storytelling, it means in this example, like the individual shared his or her experience being the student of Professor Lu and defended Lu for why he cannot answer the question. And an answer which use logical reasoning are those that cited facts, such as this one from the IRRI website to explain views. And finally, we see Zhihu users, they also use the sarcasm. For instance, this one jokes that the TV host is silly, maybe he doesn't have sufficient sleeps. So now I'm going to present our main findings. So for the first question, how do issue entrepreneurs influence public discourse on GMOs over the time? We indeed found the short-term effect of issue entrepreneurs' debate on what the public discussed. So this figure shows the effect of Cui-Lu debate on what the public discussed. So if the 95% confidence interval is like fully on the right side of the dashed line, it means these topics are significantly more likely to be discussed after the debate. So if the confidence interval is fully on the left side of the dashed line, it means these topics are less likely to be discussed after the Cui-Lu debate. So any confidence interval which you see here across the dashed line means that the Cui-Lu debate didn't influence the prevalence of this topic. So in this case, we see that topic 9 and 6 are more likely to be discussed after the debate, and topic 7 is less likely to be discussed about. So after we take a qualitative rating of the examples under these topics, we see that for topic 6 and topic 9, the publics, these are discussions about the science communication of GMO. For instance, these science communication topics include people talking about the scientists' communication skills. And also they talk a lot about the conflict between the journalist community and the science communities. So topic 6 and topic 9, I'm going to show you some example codes in the next slide. These are all discussion about the science communication. So what is the topic which are less likely to be discussed after the debate? This is the topic which talks about the science aspect of GMO, such as the safety and the different kind of issues regarding the scientific evidence about the GMO. So this topic is actually less likely to be discussed after the debate. So this is an example of an answer people are more likely to talk after the debate, which they talk about the poor communication skills of the scientists. And this is an example answer people also give after the debate, more likely to give after the debate. And we see that in this example answer, the poster pointed out that there is a conflict collision between the journalists and the frontline researcher. So we also examine how long the effect of this entrepreneurs' debate lasts in affecting public discussion. And we found that there is no enduring effect. So this is a picture with, look at, whether the things people discuss 2 months after the debate differ from the things people posted before the debate. And we see there is no topic which is more likely to be discussed or less likely to be discussed. So we did another thing again. We took a 3 months window after the debate. So 3 months after the debate, we look at, what the public discussed compared to what the public discussed before the debate. And we also don't see any topic differences. And another thing which we found is the strategy change by the issue entrepreneur also influenced what the public discussed. So we found that these TV hosts, strategy shift from communication focused to commercial events got backfired on public discourse, particularly on public trust on him. So we found that there is more discussion, like topic 7, is more likely to be discussed after this TV host opened his online organic store. And these are the topics which are less likely to be discussed after the entrepreneur opened his organic store. So the topic which are less likely to be discussed, again, very similar to after the debate. People are less likely to talk about the science of GMO. And what things people are more likely to talk about is they began to comment about these entrepreneurs' personal lives and ethics. So this is an example quote which people talk about the ethics of this entrepreneur. So they talk about that, we see that the user points out that this entrepreneur, TV host, is a very shady, vicious, but clever man. And he is trying to use, GMO as a thing to make money. And here is another example, which is more likely to be discussed after he opened the store. So users began to talk about his history of having severe depression. So a lot of the personal life things. So for our second research question, so how do the public deliberate about GMO? So we did some manual content analysis to look into different aspects of what the public deliberate after the debate. So we first look into which issue entrepreneurs are the public more likely to align their opinion with after the debate. So we found that, at least from the Zhihu users, half of them support the TV host arguments and half supported the scientist arguments. And when we look into how public attitudes on GMO differ among supporters for each issue entrepreneur, we found a huge divide. So this is a table which on the left thing, this is where are all the answers who support whose discourse. For instance, on the first row are all of the answers we coded as supporting this TV host. And for each of the answer, we look at whether this person support GMO or oppose GMO or neutral on GMO. And then the second row are all the answers which supported the scientist discourse. And among them, we look at whether these answers support GMO or oppose GMO or neutral on GMO. So we found that among all of the people, posters who support the TV host talk, majority of them oppose GMO. And for those people who support the scientist discourse, majority of them's attitude on GMO are support. So what we can see is there is a very clear divide where people take the stand on who they support and which is very closely related to their attitude about the GMO. And when we look into the rhetoric used among supporters for each issue entrepreneur, we also observe some interesting differences. So in this table, what we do is, again, each row represents the answers which supported each entrepreneur. For instance, this row represented all of the answers we coded as support of the TV host. And among these answers, we coded how many uses reasoning, how many doesn't use reasoning, how many uses storytelling, how many uses logical arguments, and how many use sarcasm. So what we found is, looking into the logical arguments, we found the majority of the supporters for this TV host, they use many more logical argumentation compared to the supporters who support scientists. And then for those users who supported the scientist discourse, actually more of them use storytelling compared to those supporters from the TV host. So we usually I was kind of thinking about, oh, maybe for those people who support the TV host, because they will be also very emotional buying the strategy of this TV host, they will use more storytelling and less logical arguments. For the scientist supporters, I was anticipating maybe people who will use more logical arguments. But what we see here is the opposite. We see that people who try to use very logical evidence to defend the TV host, but they try to tell a lot of the stories about, why the scientists fail in the debate. So how do these findings speak to the literature? And what are the implications of these findings? So first, let me talk about the findings about how our papers speak to how issue entrepreneurs influence public engagement with controversial science. So we found that the issue entrepreneurs' debate about GMO decreased the public discussion on the science aspects of the science topic, but increased people's discussion on the science communication of GMO. So this finding actually equal with literature which articulates the persistent challenges facing science communication. For instance, there is a lacking of dialogues between the journalist community and the science community, and how scientists can better communicate science to the public. So a lot of the things, what we find from what the Zhihu users focus on talking about after the debate actually equal a lot with the challenges facing the science communication. And it also speaks to the increasing call for training communication skills among scientists and having more dialogues between the scientists and the public. So the second kind of the thing which we speak is about how the public deliberate on science. So our evidence, shed a new light on how the public uses narrative, sarcasm, and logical reasoning in engaging with each other, which is a critical topic that is much less understood. So what we see is very interesting. The celebrities defenders try very hard to present themselves as critical thinkers, while the scientists defenders try to mention less about science, but more about the personal stories about the scientists in order to persuade the other group. And we also demonstrated in this paper, in order to understand this nuance of public deliberation, we can integrate machine learning with human coding in order to collect and analyze public discourse over time, which is actually critical for studying issue evolution and how issue entrepreneurs shape public discourse. And our paper also, talk about science communication in and beyond China. So it first will enrich our understanding of science communication in a different context. For instance, how various issue entrepreneurs shape public discourse and how the public interact on the Chinese internet. And this kind of background information about science communication in China can provide fruitful, information for future research to conduct cross-cultural analysis of science communication between the Western contexts and the non-Western contexts to expand science beyond the dominant Western languages and cultures. So here are several points we want to summarize about our paper and some of the takeaway and food for thoughts to share with you. So issue entrepreneurs influence what and how the public discuss about controversial science. Issue entrepreneurs' strategies differ and change over time, so as the public deliberation of science. So public are also issue entrepreneurs in the digital age, and they co-steer the conversation. So discourse analysis, integrating human knowledge and computational tools can help us track and investigate the complexity as well as the dynamics of public discourse over time. So thank you so much, and we very much look forward for your comments and suggestions. Thank you.